Good morning, kiddos, and welcome to At Home with APS. We're so glad that you're here with us once again this morning. And we're ready to start by taking a look at our calendar and doing our calendar routine. So, today is a special day. It's the last day of the month, the last day of June. So, what day will it be then? If yesterday was June 29th, what is the date today? What comes after 29? That's one of those tricky numbers we've been talking about, changing to a new family from the 20s to the 30s. So that means today is June 30th. Let's go ahead and count up to 30. Let's start at 16. That was a couple of Tuesdays ago. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and now 30. If we look at our calendar for our patterns, what shape does today get? Yesterday had a red circle, and the day before had a green triangle. So we know we always have a green triangle and then two red circles. So our pattern will continue today with another red circle. Let's go ahead and talk about today. So today is the 30th of June, we know that. What day of the week is it? Today is Tuesday, isn't it? So let's move around our today, tomorrow, yesterday labels. So today is Tuesday, then what day of the week was yesterday? Yesterday was the first day of the work week or the school week, so it was Monday. Yesterday was Monday. Yesterday was Monday, today is Tuesday, so what will tomorrow be? That's right, tomorrow will be Wednesday. We'll be right at the middle of the week. I think last week Mrs. Obenchain said sometimes we call that hump day because we're halfway through the week. We've been going up the hill and we're gonna start to go down the hill toward Friday and the weekend. So let's go ahead and put 30 on our 10 frames to show how many days we've had in the month. We only have one spot left, right? Because if our frames hold 10, then 3 of those frames hold 30. 10, 20, 30. Excellent. Okay, so let's go ahead and think a little bit more about our number of the day today, 30. We're gonna go ahead and, get this on our board for today's number. So how do we write 30, kiddos? 30 it's a 2-digit number, right? And it starts with a 3 because there are 3 tens in 30. And the second digit is a 0 because we have no ones left over. All we have are 3 tens. So this is how we write 30. How do we write 30 as a word? What do you hear at the beginning? What makes that sound? That's right, it's the TH, right? And even though 30 is a 2-digit number, we write it in words with just one word, 30. So how else could we represent 30? How about with numbers? Let's think about that. So let's see. I was thinking about yesterday was the 29th, right? And what did our frames look like yesterday? Like this. 29 on our frames. So one way we could show 30 is as 29 plus 1, right? That equals 30. So that's one addition equation we could use to represent 30. Thinking again about our frames, I think we could represent it with tens, right? How many tens did it take to make our 30? 3. Can you see our 3 10 frames? So that's 10 plus 10 plus 10. And that also equals 30. Can you think of another way that we could show 3 groups of 10 in a number sentence? How could we do that? We could also think about this. 3 groups of 10, 3 times 10 also gives us 30, doesn't it? Because we have 3 groups of 10, right? Or 10 3 times. 3 times 10 will give us 30. What about with 5s? We could break our 10s into 5s, couldn't we? And we could show that right here with some drop down. So this 10 would be 5 plus 5. Ooh. Oh, the pen is giving me trouble. Let's see, guys. There we go. So 5 plus 5. Another 5 plus 5. 5 plus 5, breaking our 10s apart, right? And if we add up all of our 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, we still get 30. I think I just taped my back. All right, great job. And what if we wrote that as a multiplication sentence? How many 5s do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we could also write this as 6 times 5 equals 30. Terrific. Okay. Last thing, let's think about where 30 belongs on the hundreds chart, right? 30 is in our very last column, our special column of decimals or 10 numbers, right? We know they all end with 0. So let's go ahead and put our 30 here in the middle. So, what would come right after 30? 30, 31, right? And what came right before 30? Think about yesterday. 29, right? Changing families, we move from the 20s to the 30s, 29, 30. And right above 30 on our number chart, so that would be 10 less than 30, would be 10 less than 30. That's right, it's 20. And if we make a jump down, then we have 10 more than 30. What would that be? 20, 30, 40. You're right. Okay. Nice job, guys. So, because we're at the end of the month and to celebrate June, let's go ahead and count back from 30. You can use our calendar to do that, or you can use our hundreds chart. So let's go ahead. 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20. What comes right before 20? Switching families, even going backwards. 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. What's right before 11? It's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice job. It's always good to practice counting backward because that can help us when we're thinking about subtraction. Okay, it's time for our counting jar. Let's see what we've got. All right, ready? Today we're going to count shells. That's pretty interesting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 shells, 10 and 6 more. So, boys and girls, at home, if you're a kindergartner, you will make a counting jar that has 16 items. Is that more or less than yesterday? Do you remember? It's less. Yesterday we had 19. So 19, 18, 17, 16. It's 3 less. If you are a first grader, you're going to double that. And I'm going to think about that like this. 15 plus 15 would give me 30. But I'm going to have 2 extra. So you will make a collection of 32. And if you're a second grader, you're going to double that. And your collection will be 64, right? Because we think about 30 plus 30 is 60, and 2 plus 2 is 4. So here's your counting jar assignment for the day. We want to get to a riddle from our riddle book because we didn't get to it yesterday. Here we go. Remember I said it would be about ice cream. Hot tips. Can you see it? My ice cream's melting in the sun. It makes a mess before I'm done. On my clothes are many drips. Drat these cones with broken tips. Can you count up all the scoops? Try first to make clever groups. Instead of counting row by row, simply add the cone below. So, we could go across and count by ones, but there's a faster way if we find groups. So how many scoops are in each cone on the top? 2 scoops, right? How many scoops are in each cone on the bottom? 3 scoops, very good. So, 2 goes together with 3 to make what number we've worked a lot on? 5. So we could count the groups of 5 to figure out how many scoops there are. 5, 10, 15, 20. 20 scoops. Terrific. We have just enough time to put up some vocabulary that we'll be looking at a little later. Pull our vocabulary chart up. Here we go. Oh, almost. That was a good catch. Here we go. Okay. So, a little later on when we read a book, we are going to be doing some measuring. So, we have a lot of measuring words today. Our first word is measure. And when you measure, you are figuring out the size of something. When you measure, you're usually comparing it to something as well. You might be using a ruler, or you might be using something else to help you think about the size of the object you are measuring. All right. If you are measuring, something you might measure is length. That's how long something is. We'll be doing that a little later. Measuring different lengths. Sometimes when we measure, we use a unit. We use a ruler that has a standard unit on it, an inch. When we use a ruler, if I measure something and you measure something, it should come out to be the same measure if we're measuring the same thing using inches. And today we're also going to estimate measurements. So that means we are going to use some non-standard tools, some things that are not the same or what we know, to make some good guesses about the size of something. That's estimating. Okay, and we're going to turn it over to Mrs. Obenshane, who has a very interesting task for you today.
I wonder if I can get this to erase altogether. I did. All right. We are going to spend some time looking at this piece of paper that has these dot patterns on it. They're called number visuals. I want you just to take a minute and look at that Promethean board and think about what number do you think could represent each of those groups? I wonder if I want to zoom in a little bit, maybe make that easier for you to see. And then we'll just kind of scroll down the page a little bit. So we'll look at just maybe these top 2 rows at first. What do we see there? I think this one's pretty easy. What number could we use to represent that? Just 1, right? It's 1 big circle. How about this one then? That one's pretty easy too, right? That could be 2. 3, huh? Are you catching a pattern here? So the next one, you're right. That looks like a dice pattern for 4, doesn't it? That one's real easy to see. That one's not as easy, is it? How many circles are there? There's 5. I was thinking 3 on top and 2 on the bottom. That same combination that you just were talking about. Let's look at this one over here. Well, we know this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this one is probably what? Probably 6. I see a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think so. It's 6. We'll put that down here. So then this one, do you think it's 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I see that 4 again. So 4 and 4 is 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to put the 8 on this side over here so I can make it bigger. How about this one? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That makes sense because we're seeing a pattern, right? That these are 1, and then there was 2, and then 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that next one's probably 10. We're going to check these in a minute and make sure, see if we can see some other ways. Let's scroll this up. So we can see these patterns that, oh, that's not going to work, is it? So we'll have to relabel those when we make it small enough to see them all. Okay, so we had all the way to 10. So then this one is probably 11. 12 would make sense for this. 13. I'm just going to double check that we're on track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yep. So probably this one is 14, 15, and so on, right? Okay, so now that we kind of have the idea of that, let's go back. And think about all of them. So if we know that this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, else could we check? Do you see any groups? We've been talking an awful lot when we're doing these lessons about finding the groups in our numbers, right? So there's no group in 1 because it's just 1. Here, we've got a group of 2. We know this one looks like a 3, right? It's kind of a triangle. Triangles we learned last week have 3 sides. So I think that's kind of an interesting way to think about that. This 4, we might recognize that from a dice just as 4. How else could you see that? Do you see that there is a 2 and a 2? I'm thinking about this pattern over here for 2, and over here I just see it doubled. You could also think about 2 and 2 this way, right? But I was sort of thinking about this pattern here. What about the next one, the 5? How else could we check for groups that would make 5? Well, we could think about our 2s and 2s, right? This sort of looks like a group of 2 and a group of 2. And 2 and 2 we know makes 4. And when we have 4, 1 more makes 5. What other groups could we see that we know make 5? You and Miss Carnes were just talking about that, how 2 and 3 would make 5, right? Yeah. How about this 6 over here? I think that one's really interesting, right? We know that this is 6, but how could we check that? What groups do we see in 6? There are really obvious 2s, aren't there? Do you see that? Looks just like a smaller version of that one. 2, 4, 6. Those groups of 2 are really coming out for us, right? This one we said is 7, right? 6, 7. I don't think the circles are as easy to see the groups, do you? But I could put some 2s together. I could do 2 and another 2 and another 2. So there's kind of like my 6, and 1 more makes 7. Any other groups that you see? Oops, I can put my 7 back. Well, 4 and 4 is 8. We've already talked about that one a lot. And there's a 4 and a 3. So 4 and 4 would be 8. And if I had a 3 instead, 1 less, it would be 7. So I could think about maybe 4 and 3. Or I could think about a 3 and a 3. 3 and 3 is 6, and 1 more. So there's lots of different ways to think about that, right? We have this paper on our website for you to download, and then you could practice coloring in the groups that you see, because the groups you see might be different than what I see. What do we have next? We have 8, right? 6, 7, 8. There's a real easy group I see there, right? We've kind of already talked about it. Do you see that 4 and 4? 4 and 4 makes 8. Or it could be 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, couldn't it? But 4 and 4 would be quicker. How about this 9? I see a 3, and another 3 in the 9. A bunch of this pattern redone quickly or repeated. How about the 10? What do you see in the 10? It's kind of like this 6, isn't it? 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. We count by 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Kind of looks like a flower, doesn't it? Flower petals. We're back at the circle. I think these are kind of hard for us to see. That shape isn't as easy to see groups as these other shapes, is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we know there's 11. How come I made that mark there? So I would know that I started with that one and I wouldn't recount it. But we could look for groups of 2 maybe, right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and one more is 11. But it's just not as easy to see those groups right away. What about the 12? We see that nice 4 again, right? 4 and 4 and 4. So we're going to stop there with this because I have one other thing that we're going to look at the groups in. But I just want you to know that like I said, this is on the website. You can download it. You can color in with a crayon or a colored pencil or something. What groups do you see? Like maybe you color in, if these were the groups you were thinking about, you could make one set of them blue and another group that color and another group that color, and then write the number that the whole thing represents. However you want to do it, but whatever groups you see, because you might be seeing something different than me. All right, let's look at our overhead projector here because I want to show you some other dot patterns. Yep, okay, we're working. These are dot patterns for what? Oh, you can't see that one, can you? Let's see if I turn the light on, if that shows up a little more. There is another dot pattern right here, but they don't have it colored in. There, now it's starting to show up a little bit. How many dots are there? There's 3 of them, huh? But they're arranged differently. This one has a lighter one and 2 darker ones, so you kind of can see 2 and 1. That one has 3 of one color, but they're arranged kind of like the triangle we saw. And this one has 3 in a row. So that'll give you kind of an idea of the dot patterns that we're going to be working with. And then I'm going to put some other dot patterns down. And you tell me which dot pattern doesn't belong. I'm going to circle these so that they show up a little bit darker. Huh, what do you think? Well, how do we know how much this is? Do you recognize that pattern? That's 4, right? How about this? A row of 3 and 1 more, so that's also 4. What's this one down here? There's an extra dot. It's 4 and 1 more, right? Which we know makes 5. So that one doesn't belong, right? Okay, you're getting the hang of it. I'm going to leave this one out here. What do you think now? Take a look at those. Which one doesn't belong? What do we have here? 4 and 1, and we know that makes 5. What groups do you see on that one? I see 2 and another 3. That also makes 5. We know that. There's that dice dot pattern for 4 and 1, and we already know that that makes 5. That's the domino 5, or dice, either one. What's that one? Oh, it's very much like this one, but you're right. I tried to trick you, didn't I? It's only 4. So this is the one that doesn't belong. I think we have time to try a couple more. So I'll put these out here for you to be thinking about. I'm going to circle my light patterns. What do you see? Which one doesn't belong? What do we know about these? I recognize this one right away. 3 and 3 is 6. That looks like a dice. That's the 5 dice, and one more would also be 6. That's kind of the same as the 3 and 3, except for these are just a different color, and so makes you sort of see the 4 and 2. So that would still be 6. And this is 3 and 2 and 1. Or we know that is another way to show 3, that triangle. So 3 and 3 is 6. You're right. It's the one on the end, huh? It has an extra dot. That one right there. It looks just like this pattern, but has extra dots. So how many is this one worth? 7. So that's the one that doesn't belong. All right, that's our last little puzzle for today. The number visuals page is up for you to look at, and then these cards are on our website for you to look at as well if you'd like to play that game with somebody at your house. Now, Ms. Carnes has a book for you.
All right. Ooh, Ms. Carnes needs a chair. Let's get a chair. Okay. So, great. We'll need these in a little bit. Hello, hello. It's time for a story. This is a story you may have read before. It is called Inch by Inch. And what do you notice about the cover of this book? One of the first things I notice is it has this kind of a medal on the front. Have you seen that before on some books you've read? This medal is called a Caldecott medal, and that means this book won a special award for its illustrations. And this book happens to be written and illustrated by the same person, Leo Leone. What else do we notice on the cover of the book? Do you see any characters that might be in the book? I see lots of leaves and plants, but hiding on one of those plants is a little tiny worm. He's an inchworm, and he is going to be the main character of our story. So let's read Inch by Inch by Leo Leone. And this is a HarperCollins book. One day, a hungry robin saw an inchworm, green as an emerald, sitting on a twig. He was about to gobble him up. A robin is a bird that we often see in the springtime, right? We have robins here in Albuquerque. Don't eat me. I'm an inchworm. I'm useful. I measure things. Is that so? Said the robin. Then measure my tail. Wonder how the inchworm will measure his tail. He doesn't have a ruler. Let's find out. What do you think he's going to do? That's easy, said the inchworm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches. How did he measure that? He measured with his whole body, didn't he? By scooting along, because he's an inchworm, kind of like this, right? Like 1, 2, 3, right? And so each time he scooted along, he counted a measure. Just think, said the robin, my tail is 5 inches long. And with the inchworm, he flew to where other birds needed to be measured. The inchworm measured the neck of the flamingo. Do you think that neck was longer or shorter than 5 inches? Lots longer, right? You've probably seen the flamingos at the zoo, right? Right when you come inside, and they have very long necks and very long legs too. He measured the toucan's beak. A toucan is a jungle bird, and that is a very long beak, isn't it? It's a large beak. He measured the legs of the heron. Looks like the heron has very long legs. Here in Albuquerque, we have some birds that come that are like herons. They're water birds. They're cranes, right? And they come to stay with us in the winter. A heron is very much like a crane with long, long legs. The tail of the pheasant, that is a very fancy tail, isn't it? A pheasant is a bird that kind of runs along the ground like our road runners do. And he measured the whole hummingbird. We have hummingbirds here in Albuquerque right now, don't we? And they are very, very small birds, aren't they? One morning, the nightingale met the inchworm, another kind of bird. "Measure my song," said the nightingale. "But how can I do that?" said the inchworm. "I measure things, not songs." "Measure my song, or I'll eat you for breakfast," said the nightingale. Then the inchworm had an idea. "I'll try," he said. "Go ahead and sing." What do you think he'll do? How can you measure a song? There must be a way. The nightingale sang, and the inchworm measured away. He's way over here. What do you think he's doing? He measured and measured. He's crawling. He's crawling. He's way down here. Can you see him on the ground? He is crawling away as the nightingale is singing. Is he measuring his song, or is he just escaping? Maybe both. Inch by inch, he measured the song until he inched out of sight. There he is. He's almost out of sight. He's at the very edge of the page, the very edge of the grass, and he's going to get away from the nightingale. You actually can measure songs. We can measure songs with time, right? That's a different way to measure. Well, today we are I've brought some things for us to measure. And let's think again about how the inchworm measured, okay? So, the inchworm was useful. He could measure things. Let's look at how he measured. So, here I have my little, let's see, maybe we can do this under the document camera. Ooh, okay. So here I have a very sparkly pipe cleaner, and let's just look at how the inchworm measured. So this is like the inchworm all stretched out, right? And to measure, he started here and he kind of squeezed up, and then he stretched out again. And that would be one measure. Let's do it this way. I think you'll see it a little bit better. So he starts straight and flat. He squeezes up to move. So that was 1 inch of the inchworm. And then he stretches back out again. And that's another length of the inchworm. So that's how he measured. Do you think we could measure things in a similar way? I think we might be able to. So if you're at home, you might want to grab some things that you can use to help you measure. We're not going to use a ruler just yet. We are going to use some other objects. So you might want to grab something like a string, or maybe you have a straw, maybe a piece of paper, that's what I'm going to use, and a scissor, okay? And we're going to use our thumbs to help us measure. Did you know that people have been using parts of their bodies to measure things for hundreds of years? People use thumbs. That's where the expression rule of thumb comes from, because people have measured with their thumbs. People have measured with their feet. That's where the term foot came from, because once upon a time, someone was actually measuring with their foot. So today we're going to measure with our thumb. So if you are using whatever you're using, I'm going to ask you to hold it up to your thumb, and you're going to line it up Here's my thumb. Let's see, can we see it? We want to measure right here from this bendy part of your thumb, where it connects to your hand, to the tip. So we want you to make your string or your straw or your paper the same length as your thumb from this bendy part to the tip. Mine is just a little bit shorter than my paper. All right, and then let's go ahead and measure some things. I'm going to try to do it under the document camera so you can see well what we're doing. Okay, so I brought a bag of some things we could measure. So let's see. Oh, that's going to be very long. All right, we'll start with this pointer. Oh, and it just fits. Excellent. So let's look at how we could use this to help us measure this pointer and measure it in thumb units. So what you do is you line up, I think I can do it on this side actually, line up the edge of your paper or your straw or your string with the edge of whatever you're measuring, right? And then we have, this is 1 thumb length. The trick is you have to keep track of where your paper ends. So I'm holding my finger there so I know where my paper ended. And I'm going to measure another. So far, it's 2 thumb lengths. Now, 3 thumb lengths. Now, 4 thumb lengths. Now, 5 thumb lengths. And just a little more. So almost just about 5.5 thumb lengths on that little pointer. Let's go ahead and write that down. Okay. So we have what we're measuring, our object, and its measure, which is another way we can use that word measure, is to talk about what the measurement was after we're done. So this pointer was about 5.5, and we'll call it a TH for thumb measures. Let's measure something else. Here's something kind of fun that you might measure at home. I'm sure you have these laying around. Shoe. So here's my shoe. I'm going to measure, I'm going to line this up with the very edge of my shoe. Think I got it? Okay, so 1 thumb length. Keep it lined up. 2 thumb lengths. 3 thumb lengths. 4. Just about 4 thumb lengths, maybe just a little more than 4. But since we're estimating today, we're going to go ahead and say 4 for this. So this is Miss Carness's shoe. It measured 4 THs or thumb lengths. Now, here's something fun and silly that you can do too at home. Let's measure this shoe. It's bigger, right? But how much bigger? Measuring can help us compare. This is my husband Chet's big, giant shoe. Let's see how much larger it is than mine. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is a whole thumb length larger than my shoe. This is the big shoe. All right, so think about some things that you can measure also at home. Shoes. Compare your brother's shoe to your shoe, your mother's shoe to your shoe. Measure the kitchen table. Measure using your thumb. You can also measure using a ruler, right? So since we were measuring with thumbs, my measures and your measures will be different because my thumb is a different size than your thumb. So a ruler is useful, like the inchworm, because it has standard measures, measures that are the same on every ruler. So that brings us to thinking about an inch. An inch is one of the measures on the ruler. So you could also get out a ruler at home and you could measure some things using your thumb unit and then measure using your ruler in inches and compare those sizes. So these are some things you can do at home and try out with measuring. And I wonder also if you might think about making things larger or smaller when we measure. What if I needed a pointer that was longer than this pointer, that was 8.5 thumbs long? How many more thumbs longer would it have to be? 3 more. 3 more of these. Because when we add on more measures, we can get something that's longer if we're creating it ourselves. So these are some things we can think about with measuring, and it can be fun to measure and compare some things at home. Let me pack up my big shoe and my small shoe, and we're going to be turning it over again to Mrs. Obenshane. Is it time for a game already?
It is time for a game.
Oh, that is such a fun time. So I get to be up here too.
All right, we're gonna play a bingo game. I'm not sure if you've ever played a bingo, but that's the kind of game where we have a board like this and we're trying to get 3 or 4 in a row. And I think we'll just try for 3 in a row. Ms. Carnes, will you move that other chart out of the way?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you have already we've reviewed our doubles patterns on our 10 frames before. Actually, maybe I'll just put so 1 and 1 makes 2, and 2 and 2 makes 4, right? And 3 and 3 makes 6. But what happens if we add or subtract 1? Right? So if I have 2 plus 2 and I add 1, then I get 3, right? I have an extra. If I have 2 plus 2 and I take 1 away, then I only have 1. So those are the combinations that we're going to be thinking about. We'll think about this double, and then what if we take one of those dots away or we add a dot to it? I'm going to finish putting up our other doubles so we have them if we need them. So 4 plus 4 was 8. 5 plus 5 was 10. And we can't put 6 plus 6 on a 10 frame because we can only have 10 on there, right? So we're going to use a bead rack to show 6 plus 6. And these, what do you notice here? We have 5 and 5 and another 5 and another 5. So here's our 10 frame, 5 and 5. And then 6 plus 6 shows us 12 on that side. And if we take one away or we add one, right, that's how we're going to play. All right, so we're also going to have either 1 to 6 dice or a 1 to 6 spinner. So you could make a spinner or you can use a dice that has 1 to 6 on it. So I'm going to roll a dice and Miss Carnes is going to use the spinner. And then we're going to roll a number, then we're going to double it, and then we're going to decide if we want to add one to it or we want to take one away. Oh, we need our pen again, don't we? There's the other pen down there. Oh, I'll get that one.
Yeah.
Get this one. So, for example, I'm going to go ahead and roll, and I'll show you what I mean. So I rolled a 3, and 3 plus 3 is 6. But there's not a 6 on our game board, is there? So I could add one or I could take one away. And for the first time, it doesn't probably matter because I'm the first one on the board. I'm going to use X's and Miss Carnes can use O's. And I'm trying to get 3 in a row. So then that's where it's going to matter whether I might add or subtract.
So, and I spun a 5. So I need to decide. So we know 5 plus 5 gives us 10. I could add 1, and that would be 11. Or I could take 1 away, and that would be 9. Well, I don't know that matters for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and, I think maybe it does matter. I'm going to take 1 away and make it a 9, and then I've blocked Mrs. Obenshain
Jeez.
from going diagonally.
Okay, I rolled a 4. So 4 plus 4 is 8, and I can add 1, or I can take 1 away. So if I add 1, that would be a 9. But Miss Carnes blocked me. So I could take 1 away and do 7. And that actually might be helpful for me, right?
Oh my goodness. Dang it, dang it, dang it. So I've already spun and I got a 2. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So I could add 1 for 5 or take 1 away and get 3. So I'm going to take 1 away. That gives me another block, plus now I have 2 in a row also.
I might have to think about blocking her, huh? She might sneak in there and get her 3 in a row. I rolled another 4. Now I'm going to take 1 away because 4 plus 4 is 8, right? Here's our 4 plus 4 is 8. And if I take 1 away, then I would have 7. And then I can block her up here. Doesn't help me get 3 in a row, but it helps me keep her from getting 3 in a row.
All right. So I've spun a 2 again, and we know 2 plus 2 is 4. So I could add 1 for 5 or take 1 away, right, for 3. I think I'm going to go with 3 just in case.
Yeah, that kind of blocks me from trying to do that, doesn't it? Miss Carnes is pretty tricky, isn't she?
I'm just good at bingo.
I got another 4, right? So if I do that here to show you what it looks like, 4 plus 4 is 8. If I took 1 away, it would be 7. If I added 1, it would be 9. So I think I'm going to go with 9 because I haven't used a 9 yet. And maybe I can block something down here, and I don't really see a way that I can use that to help me block Miss Carnes.
All right. So this time I got a 1. So double 1 is 2. I can add 1 more, and I have 3, or I can take 1 away and just have 1. So let's see. What should I go for? Oh, I'm going to go ahead and take 1 away to get a 1. It might help me. It might block Mrs. Obenshain.
1 plus 1. I got a 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. And like Miss Carnes showed you on your fingers, that's another way you can do it. 1 plus 1 is 2. Plus 1 is 3. Or I can take 1 away and get 1. And that is what I'm going to do. Miss Carnes should have blocked me down here. So there is my 3 in a row, and I managed to sneak out a win this time.
Nice job.
The other point that I want to mention is that if you are a second grader, you might be working on your high doubles. And so that would be things like 6 plus 6 and 7 plus 7 is 14. and 8 plus 8 is 16, and so on. And so there's another version of this game on our website that does high doubles if you'd like. So don't forget, you need to practice your counting jar, make your collection. You can challenge yourself and make a bigger one, or make whichever one is for your grade level. You can work with patterns and dominoes and play a doubles game. And we will see you all tomorrow.